is out of scope. So you don't, please note, no smartphone on this slide. So this is the overview of the position we're in, very consistent with the strategy. Voice and music, clear number one, as I said, 70% market share, 30% growth. Infotainment, we think we have about a number two position, that market growth with 10. Indoors location is nascent, but potentially huge growth opportunity. Imaging, number one, not that exciting from a growth perspective, so we have some work to do there. And then Bluetooth Smart, so the low energy version of Bluetooth, number one / number two position, but with enormous growth opportunities as well. Some results, so what has happened, we've been on this bandwagon now for a number of years. You can see on this slide, on the top is the margin we get in our ongoing core business, where we have these platforms, and you can see those margins are between 55 and 60%, where our component business in handsets, that we are actually not investing in and winding down, has a 35% gross margin. So as the component business goes down and the platform business grows, the company gross margin goes up, and that drives the profitability. This is the core business. As you can tell here, in Q4 11 it was about $500 million. We've managed to grow this high margin platform business by Q1 of this year to around just under 700, and our intention is to keep that growing, and our share price actually follows that trend because it is such a big driver of profitability. And with that, Luigi, I don't know if I was within the 20 minutes. Close enough, I think. I'm ready to take your questions. Yes, please.
Very nice presentation.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ganesh Devraj. I'm from Soliton Technologies. You mentioned that imaging was not so exciting in terms of growth. Could you share some more thoughts on that?
Yeah, sure. So for us specifically, traditionally we were very strong in digital still cameras, point and shoot, particularly on the low end, because on the high end it's the Canons and the Nikons who do it in-house. And that market is being cannibalized at the moment by smartphones. Now the opportunity, because that is digital still point and shoot lower end, that is not a growth market, actually it's shrinking quite rapidly. The opportunity, however, is on the video side, which is a very similar, we have a lot of IP there as well, but traditionally our roadmap was pointing at digital still cameras. So the opportunities in video, things like action cameras, security cameras, there's a lot of opportunity in automotive, drive recorders. I don't know if they're already popular in India. They should be, I think, looking at the traffic here. But they are definitely on the way up in China and also in the United States for insurance purposes. So that's where we have an opportunity. So on the imaging side, back to the strategy, it ticks the leadership box, it ticks the platform box, it doesn't tick the growth box, but we think we have a path to get there. And that's why we invest in it.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sandeep from Broadcom.
Hi, Sandeep.
In the automotive industry, do you see the smartphone kind of eating into that market share? Because I can envisage that it is likely to become just a simple display unit and everything gets, transmitted from your smartphone.
It's a very interesting point you're making, and it's a big live debate. Now, my personal answer is that yes, some of the functionality that you have on your smartphone will be borrowed or utilized or leveraged into the infotainment. But at the same time, many of the functions that you have in your car cannot be dependent on sort of a device that you might leave at home. So for instance, it's great to use you can use your smartphone with all these capabilities for hands-free calling. But at the same time, if somebody else brings a different phone that isn't as smart, or you're forgetting it and you want to still make that phone call using but many of these cars have their own SIM now. So you need redundancy. So, and that's why my our view of the world is that the smartphone and the car is actually starting to behave much more and more like a smartphone. It's got Bluetooth, it's got Wi-Fi, it's got GPS, it's got processing power, it can render images, you can put the maps on there. At the end of the day, if you have a GPS system in your car, you will want a head unit with a screen and a map, even if you can click your smartphone in something adjacent as well, because for the simple fact that you cannot depend on the thing. It might break down, you might forget it, what have you. So I think it is a matter of optimizing the two platforms so that the car and the smartphone seamlessly interact. And I think we had a demo there showcasing some of that functionality before we started this.
So you talked about M&A and part of your basically semiconductor thing. So in the context of the CSR, how basically your merger with Zoran changed the texture of the company?
Yeah, so if you look at the CSR story, as I mentioned, I joined about 5 years ago, and when I joined, CSR was an extraordinarily successful Bluetooth company, but Bluetooth only. So we set out on this journey to diversify both the technology but also the markets we were in. We were selling 70-80% of our chips in handsets, and actually at the time Nokia was very, very important, and it was within that it was Nokia. So we were looking for companies to add to our technology with, but also to the different segments. The first one was Surf, where it gave us location. And then the second one was Zoran. Now Zoran basically brought two things to the table. One is imaging and video technology, which is highly relevant not just for cameras and printers, but also, for instance, for automotive infotainment. If you want to render your map or you want to stream video to the kids in the back seat, all that stuff. So for our automotive platform, very important. The other thing, which is far less known, is that the Zoran, the company, which was, as you know them well, I'm sure, been around for a long time, has a very competent and well-respected SoC integration center in Haifa. And my position was at the time to my board when we talked about this acquisition that if you want to be a platform company, you better know how to actually integrate IP on a platform. And that's one of the skills that these guys have. So that is, and then of course it took us in other areas like cameras and printers.
Yup, I'm Jalendra. I've been part of the industry, but right now I don't have any affiliation with any company currently. I was actually intrigued by the slide from McKinsey, where you talked about portfolio movement is what dictates the growth.
Yeah.
I thought another important component was finding new applications or new breakthrough technologies which gives growth to this industry.
Absolutely true. Yeah. You mean the pure innovation, finding?
Yes.
You're absolutely right.
Would you like to give some examples from CSR?
Yes. So if you look at our, so a couple of points on that. So one, if you look at the 5 areas that we've singled out, where we say this is where we focus on, that's our investment. 2 of those are actually exactly what you say, are nascent markets, new markets with a lot of excitement. But today, if you look, for instance, at Bluetooth Smart, enormous amount is the Internet of Things, so a lot of excitement about it. But if you look at our revenue last year, it was just a couple of million, and this year we're doubling it. Great, but it's still a couple of million. However, the inflection point will come, and then the growth trajectory is enormous. So there you have a situation where you have a platform, you have a leadership position, and there is potential growth. It's not right there yet, and you need to be very honest with yourself. Sometimes the inflection point never comes. I don't know if you remember ultra wideband, which is also an area we invested a lot in, and it never happened. That's part of the game. The other one is deep indoor location, and I don't want to be spending too much time on that, but if you think location is useful outdoors, which I think all of us would agree it is, and you realize that 95% of our time we actually spend indoors, you get the hang of it. So if you actually if you find a technical solution to get an accurate indoor location fix, that is going to be very, very powerful. And we think we have a very good shot at that. Now, companies like Google and Nokia are spending tens of millions of dollars to indoor map fundamentally all public buildings in the world. All hospitals, train stations, airports, conference centers, hotels such as this. So those are two areas. Now, the final point to make on this, and this is what we learned the hard way at CSR as well, if you want to go into such an area that you identified as potentially very exciting, and you don't have the IP, don't try to go it alone and build it yourself. Buy. And don't buy a company that is small without any experience and it's almost finished, we'll cook it and then it's done. Buy something with body. Like, and the reason I mentioned that is CSR bought 2 small location companies and got nowhere, and then merged with Surf and really was on the map in one go. So, very important to find these new innovative areas. Look very carefully. If you have the IP, you're good. If you don't, think about M&A.
Thanks a lot.
Time for one more? Last? Okay.
Okay. Just if there's also you could share some thoughts about how long this portfolio momentum actually lasts.
So, I mean, it varies, but I mean, I would say it would almost never last longer than 5 years. And that is another thing to keep in mind, because that's why innovate or disappear. With the best portfolio in the world, back to that slide of the top 10 and how that churned. If you sit on something fantastic and you miss the next wave, and there's always these examples, obviously we now, the world looks in awe at, for instance, is Intel going to make the next wave or not? As an example, you never mind how big you are, you can sustain it for a long time, but ultimately you'll be in trouble. So we always we update our 5-year strategy on an annual basis, and that's one of the questions. So we have this strong position, we're growing very nicely, we're pleased with our roadmap. Do we still have portfolio momentum, or is it time for us to be building the next one?